Okay, again, this is Samanapshi, the second shir of the day, Mishna Berura. We're learning Hilchos Pesach.
Chanukah.
Thank you, Mordechai. Very good. I'm still back in the Gemara Nerechi. Hilchos Chanukah. Mordechai, I'm glad you're my right-hand man. Okay. So we're in the middle of a Bir Halakha over here. Oh. We're talking about the necessity for a shamish. When we light the menorah, we know that the minhag, that Mishna Berura is going to say specifically in this Bir Halakha that the minhag is required to be kept, that we have a shamish. And the whole subject begins here in Tav Reish Ayin Aleph, Sif Hey. In the middle of Sif Hey, the Mechaber says as follows. It's right there in the middle of the Amud by the Chaf Dalet in the Mishna Berura. B'shas hakana she'anu einu rushoyim l'kayim mitzvah, at the time of danger when we're not permitted to fulfill the mitzvah of lighting a menorah on the outside by the Pesach Habayis, by the doorsteps, right? Manicha al shulchan v'daya. We put the menorah on the shulchan in the house, and that's sufficient. V'tzorach ner acher l'shtamish la'oiroi. We need exactly. We didn't finish the discussion, so we're going to continue now. And you need a ner acher, another light to use its light, and im yesh medura, it happens to be another light, a source of light, like in this case for a medura, say for example a fireplace that's burning brightly, and you have sufficient light in the room where the menorah is. Ein tzorach ner acher. According to the strict halakha, you don't need to have another ner burning, only the lights of the menorah. If he was an Adam Chashiv, that he would never think of doing his needs by the light of the fireplace. He would always have a candelabra lit on the table. He's an Adam Chashiv. He doesn't use light from a fireplace or something like that, right? Then he needs ner acher. He needs another acher, because pashtus is that there's no distinction, there's no discriminating markings, recognition that the light that he's lighting is a menorah of Hanukkah, because he always uses a candelabra on his table. So this candelabra, the menorah that he has there, there's nothing distinct about it, specifically telling us that he's lighting for the sake of the mitzvah. Okay, so let's take a look again in the Bir Halakha. Any volunteers to read? We'll start again the Bir Halakha to get a running start. That's the Ramaskot Tzorach ner acher l'shtamish l'orah. You need another ner in order to use the ner of the light of the menorah.
Pirush Rashi.
Go ahead, Toby.
Mishun hakir. Ritzona lomar she'afilu im lo yitzeh klal yishtamesh l'orah. B'kol makom tzarech ner acher she'yeh hayacholet miyado l'shtamesh l'orah.
So Rashi the Mishna Berura is explaining what Rashi means. Rashi there in the Gemara, in explaining why you need the additional ner, explains you need to have a distinguishing markage telling us why he needs, why he's lit the first light. Afilu im lo yitzeh yistamish la'or, even if you don't want to use that light right now, right? The kol makom, meaning you don't intend to use any light in the room that you're in now. The kol makom tzorach ner acher, you still need to have an extra additional light. You should have the potential to use the light, right? The ayidei zeh nikar shener harishon hu mishum l'shem mitzvah, because through the writing of the secondary light, the shamish, that's megala to us, that's revealing to us that the light you lit first originally was a ner shel mitzvah for Hanukkah. Okay.
So the shamish is not the main thing; it's the first light that counts.
The light that you light is the layer of the mitzvah of Hanukkah, and that's the ner that you make the bracha on. And the shamish is just making an indication. It's a heker. It's an indication that what you lit originally was a ner of mitzvah, a ner of Hanukkah.
So you don't light the shamish first.
Well, as to whether or not you light for the shamish, we're going to get to that. Hold on.
Okay.
We're getting to all that Bez Hashem. The ilav hachi, go ahead.
In lav hachi, kiven de omer al shulchan, yomber the shel tzorchav hadlika. Nireh davka, v'menicha al shulchan, אבל כל המניחה סמוך לפתח, אין צורך בנר אחר. אף על פי שעומד לו לשם.
Okay, so we say here that since the menorah is put on the shulchan, right? Therefore, we would say, why is he putting a candelabra on the table? He wants to use the light. People light lights to use the light. They eat by the light. They read by the light. They learn by the right light. Count their money by the light. So this candelabra that's been placed on the table, if there's no heker, if there's no distinguishing markage that this is a ner of mitzvah, we'd say, why is he lighting the menorah? He's lighting the menorah in order, like he wants to read, eat, or do something for his own purposes by the light of this menorah, the candelabra that's been placed on the table. Therefore, light an additional light to reveal to us his real intention in lighting the original light was a ner shel Hanukkah. Aval kol menicha samech lePesach ein tzorach acheres, ner acheres. But when you're going to light, as was originally enacted, to light outside by the Pesach, by the doorway, there you don't need an extra ner, right? Because even though you might be standing there, you might be standing by the Pesach Abayas, but you don't need to have a additional ner. That's mikra din. Because by the doorways, people don't use that area for their purposes. They walk in and out of the doorway, but no one stands around the doorway doing things. So therefore, you'd never come to make a mistake that he's lighting the ner on the Pesach Abayas, on the doorway to his house, for his own personal usage. He's only lighting it, obviously, because it must be a ner shel mitzvah. So therefore, mikra din, right? You don't have to have a ner shamish, an extra additional light by the Hanukkah menorah, which is lit on the outside of the house. Achein, however, four lines up from the bottom. Achein minhag la'oil.
It's in the middle of the soup. Achen in the middle. Achen.
Middle, achen. Now here.
Right there.
Lechen,
Achein. How would you?
lechen, not lechen. I'm sorry.
Interesting. Okay. One second. No. What is it? I a little bit different to Furst than I do. 1 second. Achein, yeah, right there. Achein. Okay, however.
מנהג העולם, וכן מנהג רב הסדר, ובכל נר חנוכה המדויקת בתוך הבית. צריך נר אחרת, אפילו לא היה צריך לקשמיש.
So it says, however, the minig of the general accepted custom, and that was the custom of our forefathers, that every ner Hanukkah that's lit in the house needs a ner acheres.
What about in the window?
Oh, that's past.
It's in the house.
It's not, I would say it's in the house.
It's in the house.
No, it's,
Okay.
yeah, I would say in the house. Yeah. True. Yeah. I would say so. Yeah. Okay. I feel low even if you don't have any need for the light. Why? Why do you need the shamish? So that people won't say that you're since it's a ner which you're lighting in the house, right? Any ner that's lit in the house for the sake of the menorah, wherever it happens to be lit, since you use the house, people may say, well, why are you lighting the ner? You're lighting for your own purposes to use the light. So therefore you need to have a shamish, right, to reveal to everybody and yourself that you're lighting this light, the first initial light, for the sake of the menorah, for the ner of the Hanukkah.
Zav HaMe'ir HaNsham Ha'in between Megadim שכן, משמע גם כן מתשובס רמה ועין בסוף סימן רייש חטא הסעיף קטן I'm interested in how it's throughout Shas the use of the word Adam Chashuv.
Adam Chashuv, yeah.
He seemed like, because of luxury, not saying he's a Talmud Chacham or a Rosh Yeshiva.
Mhm.
Is that different?
Okay, yeah, you see something in this in the question of that you're asking is here the Mechaber, right? The Mechaber is using a Adam Chashuv. So Adam Chashuv could be Chashuv for various different reasons. Right, so you have to know within the context of what you're referring to. Here, Adam Chashuv could be he's wealthy, he's dignified. Sometimes people are dignified, but they're not wealthy. Sometimes they're wealthy. Their wealth gives them their dignity. Sometimes their wisdom gives them their dignity. Right, so an Adam Chashuv is an important person, a dignified person, and again, you have to try and find. It doesn't. For our halakha right now, doesn't necessarily matter what the source of his dignity comes from, but he feels himself dignified enough that he wouldn't use, in this case, the light of a fireplace. He'd always, anytime he would use anything, any light source that he would use in his house would be a candelabra of dignified status, right? So that's in this, but many times Adam Chashuv is referring to a Talmud Chacham, right? Sometimes it's referring to simply somebody who's on an elevated level of social status for some reason. Yeah. Right.
Yes, there's some women here see that by Isha Chashuva.
Isha Chashuva, we saw that by Hilchos Pesach about doing Seba. Isha Chashuva, right. Saw that exactly. Right. Yeah, a couple of more lines of the Bir Halacha just to finish it up. Now the Mishnah Berura says, "Afilu misha ein lo ela ner echad."
Then the next,
The next page is it?
I was down through all those references.
Right. So now turn the page. Right.
The one last point you said.
Afilu.
I found Misha Ein Lo Ela Ner Echad Ner Acheret V'Amulik Mishamesh Lo Ein Lo Chol Makom V'Amulik Et Haner Yivorech Alei B'Chol Makom V'Lechatchila V'Dai Yizaher Shelo Yishtamesh L'Fan.
Right. So therefore, even if a person only has one ner, right. Nevertheless, he should be careful, to not use not to be active, be involved with other activities in front of the light. Okay.
What's the last point the Rebbe said?
Okay. The point is like this: that there are those that suggest that perhaps since we have electric lights at our house in many cases, in almost all cases in our times. Therefore, maybe we would not necessitate the need for a shamash, right?
Even if it's in the house?
Oh, so you see clearly from the Mishnah Berura, anytime you have a nair that's lit in the house, right, you have to have a shamash.
Right.
Have to have a shamash. However, they say that could be perhaps the time when the only light sources they had were nairs, were flames. But now we have other light sources and we have plenty of light, and no one would dream that a person is going to simply use the light of the menorah for his own personal use. Obviously, in our time, if we would light something like a menorah, we would do it for mitzvah, like for Shabbos or for Hanukkah, right? Nevertheless, one source to say not like that and to maintain the minhag as it was, as the Mr. Brewer wrote it for us, is that even though we do have light sources, right, but we turn them on and off. Right? Our lights go on and off constantly, right? So if it's very common, if you would have a menorah, say, burning in the light of that window there or on the table here, and it's later at night, and then you turn the lights out. So you would then possibly come to use the light of the menorah, right? So therefore, in most cases, you're always going to have a shamash. We're going to see more about that now. We're going to go to another halakha related to this, right? And apparently, with the way the Mishnah Berura is learning in the Bir Halacha, we want the shamash there to prove to everybody to be a heker, as Rashi said in the Gemara, to be a heker, to be a distinguishing markage that the nair that you lit originally was a nair shel mitzvah, not a nair which you're going to use for your own purposes. Okay. Now, there's another halacha which is related to this. I'll show you where to reference to that. It's in Tov Reish Ayin Gimel. It's in the middle of the halachas. It might be worth our while maybe just to read maybe we'll just read the mechaber till we get to the point where we need it. Yeah.
Best.
Tov Reish Ayin Gimel.
From the very beginning.
Right, we'll start at the very beginning. Let's see, a little bit further more here. Yeah, start from the beginning, and then we'll get to our point, and we'll stop to work on the point that we want to bring out at this point. Go ahead.
כל השמנים והפסילוס כשבט בדרך חנוכה. ואף על פי שאין השמנים נמשכים אחר הפתילה. אין האור נתלה יפה באוסם הפתילה.
So the Mechaber says all types of oils and all types of wicks are permissible for the Ner of Hanukkah, right? Even though that there are some oils that don't draw well up into the wick, right? And sometimes the ore that the flame is not ignited properly. Meaning this is in contrast to the halakha we have by Shabbos. Halakha by Shabbos, you have to have special oils and special wicks. A lot of discussion in halakha about the wicks and the oils that you use for Shabbos, because they must be oils and wicks which are very good for lighting. Because we're worried, Chazal were worried that if it would not be good for lighting, the light would flicker. The oil would not produce a brilliant light. Where you might come in the course of Shabbos, Hashem, to tilt or to do something to correct the dim light, and that would be a chilul Shabbos. In most cases, it would be a chilul Shabbos deraisa, right? So therefore, they said you only can use the very best oils and wicks. Okay. However, by Hanukkah, since it's usher in fact to use the light of the menorah, we're not concerned whether or not you're going to be able to. You're not concerned if it's going to be a dim light or not. Okay, we'll see more of this as we get further on, but we want to get to our main point, which is still related to the previous halakha we were just learning. The Ramah adds, Umihu, however, that's the source. The source of the Ramah's statement is the kol boy. Those are Rishon, a Rishon.
שאורן זך ונקי, ונוהגים במדינות אלו להדליק בנר של שבה.
That's wax candles, right? In the time of the Ramah, wax candles were very good for the lighting. Why?
אורן צלול כמו שמן.
Because the light is brilliant, like that of oil. And it gave off a brilliant light. Now, Afilu. Continue.
ואפילו בליל שבס, שבתוך ימי חנוכה, מותר להדליק בנר חנוכה השמנים הפתילות, שאסור להדליק בהם נר שבס.
So this is a Kiddush. Even on the Shabbos night of Hanukkah, where you might think that you have the superimposed upon the halachas of Hanukkah would be the halachas of Shabbos superimposed on those halachas, and you'd have to use only the very best oils and wicks. Nevertheless, no, for the Ner Hanukkah, you can still use the same oils and wicks you've been using the whole time through Hanukkah. Ramah adds,
אם אינו נותן בנר רק כדי שיביאו מצווה.
Being Eino knows to me that's referring only if you meaning when you don't have to be careful about the best wicks and oils is if you're only putting in the exact amount of oil for the mitzvah of Hanukkah, which is basically a half an hour burning time after the Chatzos, time the stars come out. But if you're going to put in additional oil that's going to remain burning after the time of the mitzvah, so at that point, after you fulfilled your mitzvah of the half an hour burning time, now the light of the menorah actually becomes permissible to you, right? So in the case of Shabbos, Hanukkah, we're concerned if you're going to put additional oil in after the time of the lighting, you're now permitted to use the light of the menorah, and you might come to tip it. You might come to do something that's going to be a Chilul Shabbos with the menorah of Shabbos. So therefore, if you're going to put additional oil and wicks that are not, you're going to have to use the very best like you do on Shabbos. Okay, well, maybe if we have time, we'll get to see a little bit of Mishna Berura about that. But now we're going to come to our point a bit. Go ahead.
לפי שאסור להשתמש בנר חנוכה בין בשבס בין בחול. ואפילו לבו מלס או מנוסן לאור אסור.
So now this is we're coming to our point here. Since it's forbidden to use the ner of Hanukkah, whether on Shabbos or whether on Choyol, therefore you don't have to have the very best oils and wicks for the Ner Hanukkah because you're not going to come to use it. We're not worried you're going to come to Mechalel Shabbos, right? Now, and what's now the Mechaber is going to talk about that it's also to use the light of the menorah. What can you do? What can't you do? Afilu livdoik. One line up. You can't use the light of. You can't use the light of the. You can't check money, which is a very easy type of a thing to do. Nor can you count money by the light of the menorah. That's forbidden.
Even with the Shabbos?
Without the, hold on with the Shamash, that we're talking about just the Ner Hanukkah. Just the Ner Hanukkah. Ner with the Shamash was mutter, right? You know the Shamash, we learned previously, the Shamash comes to permit you to use the light. But the question is, what light are you using? Am I using the light of the menorah or using the light of the Shamash? Right? That's another question. Okay?
To do things like counting money? Yeah.
What?
To do things like counting money?
You want to, yeah, people. In the old days, they only had candles to count money. They didn't have electric lights. How are they going to count their money? It's nighttime. Guy comes to pay you back. You lent the fellow $1 million, right? He comes back to pay you back. You want to count the money. How are you going to do that? Get a lot of candles.
Another candle.
Well, let's say I've got the Hanukkah, I've got the menorah on my table.
That's Kedusha's mitzvah.
Even that's also. That's what you said. Even Kedusha's mitzvah is also.
Right. Even we're going to see. Even learning. You want to learn. You want to take out a Gemara. You want to take out a Mishna Berura.
This is definitely.
Yeah. We see it's also. It's also. You can't with the menorah there. You can't count your money.
And that's why I asked you, even with the Shabbos, because why would someone?
So if the Shamash is there, so what is the Shamash about? What's the purpose of the Shamash?
Maybe Torah.
Well, I mean, look, this is my house. Just because I lit the menorah, that means I have to leave my house. I can't use my house.
The person doesn't have another candle.
No, he has. It's the second night Hanukkah, right? He's got the second night Hanukkah. You load 2 candles, right? Load 2 candles, right? And he only has 3 candles, right? So the 2 candles for Hanukkah. He put a shamash. So now, can he count his money? The guy wants to pay you back. He gave you. You got $1 million. He's giving you. He wants to. You're gonna count the money. A lot of $100 bills there.
That's
Even if you have a shamish? If you have a shamish, it's still also to count your money?
I'm trying to remember what it said, I don't remember.
Let's review it again. Okay, so it says here, the fisha also lishtaner. You have the place there in the mechaber?
פינה אסור להשתמש בנר חנוכה בין בשבת בין בחול. אפילו או למנוסן או משהו.
Or even to count them by the light of the menorah, that's also. Okay, let's continue. Afilu tash nishim.
Even with the Shabbos.
Don't know. Right now, let's leave it as a question mark. Good question.
אפילו תשמי.
What's the Shamish?
Okay, hold on. Let's 1 second. We'll get. Let's finish the mechaber a bit. Hold on.
אפילו תשמי של קדושה כגון ללמוד אורה אסור.
Also, even a holy act of learning Torah by the light of the menorah is also. Okay.
יש מי שמתיר תשמי.
Yesh mishamata. There are those that permit a usage of if you want to do something holy, right?
נוהגים להדליק נר נוסף.
Oh. So now comes the minhag. We add an extra there, right? Why?
אם משתמש לאור, יהיה לאור נוסף. שהוא עושה, שהוא הדלק אחרון. ויניחנו מרחוק קצת משעה נר מצווה.
So, we're accustomed to light an additional nair. If you come to use the light, that'll be the light of the additional light that was lit last. Okay, and it's placed. This additional light is placed. It's placed a little bit further away from the rest of the nairs of mitzvah. Okay, we'll continue. Let's see the Ramah. Here's a few more things.
אלו אין נוהגים להוסיף, רק מניח את זמן השמש שבו מדליק הנרות.
So it says in our regions, the Ramah says in our regions, we're not accustomed to add an additional nair. Rather, Manika Etzlan Hashamish Shaba Madlik Haneros. Rather, we put there next to the Neros that we lit, that which we use to light the Neros. This will be there's a discussion about this exactly. Also, who I did pray. That's much better. That's a good way of doing things. And now also the Yesh, another point that we'll mention here, and one more line in the Ramah. And now, there is to make the Shamish longer, to make it last longer than the rest of the Ner mitzvahs of the Hanukkah. Why? Because if you're going to come to use the light, you're going to use that light. That'll be the light which is going to be, now is that longer in time or a bigger flame? We'll have to try and determine that. That's not clear in the Ramah. Okay. Now that's the last point. There's another point in the Ramah. That's if you lose a candle of Ner Hanukkah and other candles, that they become asur. No, that's something else. Okay, we'll need to stop here. We'll get ready for the next field of Shirin. And we'll be going through this halacha now tomorrow, Bli Neder, with the Mishna Brewers, and we'll be discussing a little bit in there for more detail. Okay, and have a good day. Anyone needs to make a bracha achrona, it's a good time if necessary. Good.